Make sure your glass is half full because I'm sharing the top reasons things look good for cruises to restart up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanblog.com, and 2020 has been anything but a positive year for cruises, or really anybody in general. The cruise industry has been shut down since March, and there's not a firm restart plan for cruises in the United States, Europe, or Australia to look at. And while this seems bleak, I think there are some really positive signs to keep an eye on that does make it look like we might be closer to cruises restarting than ever before. Of course, I'm not going full Pollyanna on all of you with sprinkles of pixie dust and unicorns because, let's face it, there are still plenty of hurdles and unknowns that the cruise industry will be struggling with. But with all of those bleak issues, I still see opportunities and hope for the future that are worth considering as we wait for the go-ahead to cruise again. I've got 5 really positive things that are happening right now that give me hope cruises might be able to restart soon. We're going to start off with number 1, which of course is the CDC lifting the no-sail order. Now, the no-sail order has been in place since March, and it has basically prevented cruise lines from being able to restart cruises here in the U.S., and I think a lot of other countries have taken notice of it as well. But in late October, the CDC lifted the no-sail order, replacing it with a framework for the conditional sail order, which sets up a pathway for cruises to be able to restart. This new conditional sailing order will encompass a few phases. Number 1, testing and additional safeguard for crew members. Number 2, simulated voyages. And number 3, a phased return to cruise ship operations. Now, this is good news, even though it does provide a lot of new hurdles and challenges for the cruise lines to be able to overcome. However, the important thing is there is now a pathway, and the cruise lines have taken this as a very good sign. And I take it personally to see this as there is an avenue. There is a way now for the cruise lines to do their work, and they're not afraid of saying this may take a little while, but to do the work to be able to get cruise ships moving again. And the conditional sail order is a major, major step. Listen, it's not a open door to let any cruise ship going there, but the fact that the cruise ship ban is over after 7 months is a significant milestone. Royal Caribbean and the other cruise lines have been basically begging the CDC to be able to demonstrate that they have the proper protocols in place to be able to safeguard the health of guests, crew, and the communities the cruise ships visit. So with all this, it's a major step, and it's hard not to see that as a possibility. Could things change? Of course, anything can change. However, as it stands right now, the conditional sail order is a way for crews to be able to restart, and I think that's a fantastic starting point. The next positive sign that cruises are on their way back is a lot of the videos you may have seen right here on our YouTube channel, in which we share a video from Royal Caribbean Group Chairman and CEO Richard Fain. Mr. Fain has shared a variety of videos since the beginning of the cruise shutdown, and in each of these videos, he gives kind of an outlook as to what is happening right now. Now, he doesn't show all of his cards by any means. However, he has a very upbeat and positive outlook on where things are going, and his videos in the last couple of weeks have really gotten a whole lot more positive, with obviously the conditional sail order being implemented, the no sail order being lifted, and a variety of other advances in the pharmaceutical field. You know, Mr. Fain's videos, I think, for me, give a lot of positive feedback because this is a man who is not only in charge of a company, but his entire livelihood is based around this, right? And while you and I are just observing what's happening in the industry, we get little bits and pieces of information as they kind of leak out through the media. But for Mr. Fain, who is involved with the day-to-day operations, you know, number 1, he's got to be able to report back to his shareholders and to the public on what's going on. But number 2, I mean, he's living through this and he can see this firsthand, a lot of things that we can't see. But the fact that he's out there and he's providing these updates and sharing that the cruise line is actively working on a way to restart cruises, to me, is a very positive sign. Unfortunately, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And we are at the mercy here of what information we can glean. But the videos for me that Mr. Fain is posting, these updates that we're seeing, to me show that the cruise line is moving in that direction. If they were not moving in that direction, in my opinion, I believe the tone of the videos would be completely different and kind of talking about maybe even more long-term focus than anything else. But it really does seem, based on what Mr. Fain and a variety of other executives have been saying over the last couple of weeks, that things are moving in the right direction. There is progress being made, and it seems like the onboard operations, the way to get things going again, get the crew members back on board, the testing protocols in place, and be ready to do these test sailings is a very positive sign for me, coming right from the top of the company. The next positive sign to look for is the fact that Royal Caribbean is actively eyeing these test cruises. As I mentioned earlier, the second phase of being able to move through the conditional sail order is for a cruise line like Royal Caribbean to offer test sailings. And we don't know exactly when they might start, but it sounds like there's definitely that conversation happening within Royal Caribbean. I've been writing on RoyalCaribbeanblog.com some comments coming from Royal Caribbean about some of these test cruises, which are still up in the air. However, they are in the conversation. While these trial sailings are not scheduled yet, or we certainly don't know when they're going to occur, Royal Caribbean has said they do know that initially employees and members of their operational teams will be on board, and we're also seeing evidence of even crew members starting to return back to cruise ships in order to do these test sailings. So there is positive progress being made, in my opinion, in terms of what we're seeing with these test sailings. And the fact that they're talking about test sailings is a really good sign. I don't think they'd be talking about phase 2 if they couldn't get past phase 1. So certainly I take that as a positive sign. Another really good sign for me is the fact that Royal Caribbean added new sailings for Odyssey of the Seas earlier than originally scheduled. Royal Caribbean added sailings from Southampton and Barcelona prior to Odyssey of the Seas' scheduled debut in Rome. These new sailings are in early April, and there's a variety of sailings, including a 3-night weekend getaway cruise from Southampton, as well as a 5-night repositioning cruise between Southampton and Barcelona, Spain. And then they've got a couple of cruises from Barcelona as well. The fact that Royal Caribbean is adding cruises before the scheduled start for a cruise ship that has been delayed by almost a year tells me a couple things. Number one, the ship is going to be delivered on time. Number two, they wouldn't be adding new sailings if they didn't have some level of confidence that these sailings would actually go on. Adding sailings and then having to cancel them later on is just a bad PR move, and I just don't see them adding sailings without thinking, yes, there's a good chance of these cruises actually occurring. So the fact that Odyssey will have our inaugural season a little bit earlier, I think is a great sign that Royal Caribbean is feeling pretty good about cruises, maybe in Europe as opposed to the United States, but nonetheless, still progress. And the last thing that gives me a lot of hope, and I think this gives everybody a lot of hope, is the advances in vaccines and treatments. You know, there's been a lot of progress, and even when I record this video here, I am sure a lot of this will change in the next couple of weeks, but there has been a tremendous amount of progress both in vaccines and in treatments, and that's a really good sign because the promise of being able to not only treat the disease, but also really prevent a lot of it and bring those numbers down across the world is probably what we've all been waiting for since March, right? While a lot of the measures we've been all doing here at home in order to protect ourselves have been marginally effective, they have not been the silver bullet I think we've all been waiting for. And it looks like some of these new vaccines look extremely promising, and the new treatments equally good news as well. While neither of these may eradicate the virus completely, they will have an effect on bringing the numbers down, and most importantly, bringing COVID-19 from a global health emergency down to something much lower and much more manageable. And that allows cruise ships and a variety of other aspects of life to be able to resume. So even if you're not believing that the vaccine or any of these treatments may necessarily, again, wipe the virus off the face of the planet anytime soon, that's okay, because the goal is not necessarily to do that in the short term. I mean, that is probably the long-term goal, but in the short term, what we want to do is obviously, I think, get back to a sense of normalcy and having much less numbers that bring it down from a public health emergency, from a pandemic to an epidemic to localized issues is what the cruise industry needs. And I'm going to say this again, everybody needs to be able to really get back to, I think, a more sense of normalcy. And this is really positive news out there. There's a variety of progress being made on both these fronts, and between the vaccine and some of these treatments, I think there's a lot of good news, and it seems to be also spilling over not only to Royal Caribbean and the cruise lines' bottom line in terms of their shares, but also to a lot of industry watchers who are saying, okay, maybe we are closer to being able to restart cruises more safely because the threat itself will be mitigated by some of these new treatments. And of course, I'm not a public health expert. I'm terrible at predicting the future. But again, all these things to me provide a positive outlook, positive signs, things that go, oh, that's good news. And for me, that leads me to believe maybe, just maybe, things are moving in the right direction for cruises to be able to restart. And even maybeier, that's not a word, but nonetheless, maybeier we're going to get on a cruise before we know it. But I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Are these positive signs? Are there other positive signs I missed? Are you more of the glass is half empty a view of some of these things and you're still not ready to sip the Kool-Aid, that's okay too. Let me know in the comments what you think about the prospects of cruises being able to restart. I'd love to read them. And be sure to subscribe to our video. Make sure you turn on your notifications and like this video if you did find it enjoyable or at least intriguing or kind of a good use of your 5 or 10 minutes. That helps us too, because liking the video, subscribing to our channel really helps us out with this whole YouTube algorithm thing. Thanks again for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanblog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.